Welcome to the HindmanCast, a podcast of the Hindman Settlement School, where we explore the history, culture, and people that make the Hindman Settlement School what it is today, and how this historic institution will continue to serve its mission of celebrating heritage and changing lives in Central Appalachia. I'm Corey Terry.
And I'm Jordan Collins.
And welcome to episode number 21 of the HindmanCast. Jordan, how you feeling? You just got back from a big trip.
Tired.
You look tired.
I am incredibly tired.
Yeah.
It is basically 8 to 8 every day, but learned a lot. Got to meet Mr. Andy Brashear, Governor Andy Brashear.
Oh, yeah. So is he going to be on the podcast next?
You know what? I
You
should have given
should
my
have
card.
mentioned that.
I'll get him here. I know people now.
Yeah.
I'm real powerful.
You sure you got his
influential.
email or something or his phone number? You could text him.
I don't know if you can. I don't know if that works that way. I think that has to go through channels first. But
Probably. It's Jordan's been gone to Bright Leadership, Kentucky for the past couple of days.
Soar Summit. I'm going to go ahead and flex them a little bit. A lot of things going on in Appalachia. A lot of help for the community. It was in Corbin. It's going to be great. I'm feeling real positive about the region today.
It's good. It's good. All right. We're going to start off this podcast doing something a little different. We're going to do some reading. Cam wandered through this uninhabited place, remembering each house and family and tree that had been here before the water came. She stumbled, nearly turning an ankle as she crossed a disintegrating asphalt slab, a remnant of the street where she had lived in a town that once existed. She glanced in both directions, more from childhood habit than necessity. Since there were no cars left, there was nothing left, only a few shards of brick and stone, a faint curvature of sky and earth that felt vaguely familiar. Her mother's unsealed wedding dress had made her feel nostalgic and drawn back to the old town. The ecru lace gown, preserved with care for future generations in a heavy cardboard box, designed to keep out moisture and fabric-eating pests, had been brought out and altered to fit Cam. The wedding, her second, Owen's first, was in 3 days. She and Owen had been friends since childhood. They were when they both lived in this old town. Cam had been slow to see him as anything other than a buddy and hesitant about marrying again. But this time it made sense, she thought. Now in their 40s, surely they knew what they were getting into. That morning she had met with the seamstress for a final fitting. The waistline had been let out a bit, the shoulders taken in. Torn lace repaired in a few spots. In the small, cluttered tailor shop, she slipped the dress on and looked at herself in a three-way mirror. "How does it feel?" the seamstress asked as she zipped up the back and tugged at the neckline. "Like I've stepped back in time," Cam said, thinking about the framed wedding picture that had been on her parents' bedside table for as long as she could remember. Her mother wore the same dress in the photograph, her satin sling-back pumps shining beneath the T-length hem. The black and white photo had been snapped in 1955 as the smiling young bride and groom descended the steep concrete steps of the Eddyville First Methodist Church. And now, nearly 50 years later, Cam looked in the mirror and thought the dress made her look younger too. She was smiling as she left the shop, pleased with how the gown had turned out, but drawn to the place in the photograph. For the last few months, she had focused on the future, whether to get married, what kind of wedding suited them, but today the past pulled at her. She ignored the list of errands in her pocket and decided to drive to the old town. She still remembered the way. The two-lane highway dead-ended at a lonesome knoll overlooking Lake Barkley. Cam parked in a grassy area beside the road and walked toward what used to be Water Street, the hilly one that had ended at the ferry landing. The broad lake sparkled in the midday sun. The sky was bright and cloudless. She watched as a large cabin cruiser, better suited for the ocean than an inland waterway, powered its way through the narrow, twisting channel marked by red and green navigation buoys. The markers served as both reminder and warning that the Cumberland River's deep channel still provided the safest passage on a lake that appeared vast but could be deceptively shallow in places. The cruiser spread an oversized wake that rocked nearby fishing boats and caused the captain of a slow, scruffy pontoon boat to swerve at a defensive angle to keep from getting swamped. A lone bronze marker revealed the spot's history as the former site of Eddyville, a thriving town settled near a series of bends in the Cumberland River, which snakes a course through the middle of the country from mountains to barrens to rolling hills. The town's role in American history as an outpost on the western frontier, as an important junction during the Civil War, as a commercial center and county seat. The tarnished words also described mid-century government projects for flood control, hydroelectric power, and tourism when the flowing river was dammed. The sign memorialized U.S. presidents, vice presidents, and governors from Kentucky and Tennessee, but failed to mention the people who had lived in this town and given up their homes as the giant lake rose. They had been told their sacrifice was for the public good. They were never told how much they would miss it, or for how long. And that is a excerpt from Fireside Industries' latest publication called Drowned Town by Jayne Moore Waldrop. And Jayne is our special guest today. Jayne, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm just thrilled about this opportunity to be here.
And we are thrilled to be a part of it as well. It's been fun working with you so far on this book, on what we have done here at the Settlement School anyway, with our Fireside First and getting all that together, and happy that everything is going well with that. So
I know, and it's all been during the pandemic too, since it was accepted for publication and all the editing process and all the things that you all are doing. So, woohoo!
Glory, as they
Glory.
say.
Glory is right.
Although we've been inside and things have closed down, I feel like we've done a lot more this year than we have any other year. Not only as Hindman Settlement School, but individuals. I feel like a lot of us have grown in a lot of different ways. So that's my positive about the pandemic.
No,
I'm just going to throw that out there.
I think you're right. I think we're all seeing life in a different way.
Yeah.
And work life too.
Yeah.
So many people working remotely and changing jobs and things like that. It's a time of change.
Yeah. I mean, you got a book published. People are starting businesses. I mean, who would have known? This is what we needed.
We're
forward. Positive. We're being positive.
Yeah, I'm trying to be an optimist today. It's completely out of character, but
that is true. Well, I've been very much looking forward to getting this book in my hands. It's a beautiful book. I've looked forward to reading it. I got to read a little bit of it today, and just saw myself in a lot of ways. Like when you were talking about, I guess they were in the house when they were younger, and they found a picture of a child that was there during the funeral, I guess, that they had, and it was like the picture was like exactly where she was standing at, and I was like, I love going back and like looking at pictures, and like even around campus here, and just seeing like comparing things to how they were then and what they're like now. It's a fun thing. And then how we have our own drowned town here in Knott County with Carfork Lake, and I think the town that was buried underneath that is called Cody, and you can sometimes see the roads that used to go through there sometimes when the water's low.
Can you?
Yeah, so I've very much looked forward to reading it, and we'll talk a little more about it later on in the podcast. But first, Jordan, what do we do?
Oh, our first question on every podcast has to be the origin story. So if you could just tell us, how you got to where you are today, your beginning. We want to know birth to now, basically.
Oh, okay. How long is this podcast?
Let's just hit the highlights.
Yeah. Well, we can start in Pike and Letcher County, where my family's from. My parents lived there. My dad grew up in Shelby Gap in Pike County. My mother grew up in Jenkins. They moved to Western Kentucky, far Western Kentucky, in the early 1950s during a particularly down period in the coal business. So they moved for economic and for personal reasons to Paducah, which was a boom town at the time because of the uranium enrichment plant. So it was a big time, economic time in Western Kentucky. So they moved there. I had an aunt who had married a Western Kentucky man. That was our connection to Western Kentucky. So rather than leaving for Michigan or Ohio, which so many people did when they left the mountains, my parents moved west. So they took my 4 siblings and moved, and I was the only one who was born in Western Kentucky. So I'm the first one in my family since probably late 1700s or early 1800s not to be born in Appalachia. So that's that's part of my origin story.
It's neat.
So then I came to UK for my undergraduate and law school, practiced law in Louisville for many years, moved back to Lexington when my husband took a new position in 2007. And I decided I was going to go back for my MFA in creative writing. Did that program, finished in 2014. Started returning to Hindman for the Appalachian Writers Workshop in 2017. I'm going to step back a bit. I first came to the Appalachian Writers Workshop in 1994, so that sounds really like a long time ago, and it is. But at the time, I was still practicing law, raising kids, just never quite got around to sitting down and writing and making that commitment to write. So timing is everything.
That definitely would be a time crunch, to be a lawyer. And, I mean, that in itself is a huge time commitment, then kids on top of that.
It is. So, anyway, the writing, other than legal writing, didn't get done. The creative writing didn't. So it took a back burner, but eventually resurfaced. Started coming back in 2017 and have been back or been involved. Of course, the two virtual writers' workshops, I've participated in those from my own little office at home. So, but maybe next year we'll all be back on campus. Hope so.
Yeah, I sure hope so. Like,
yeah, I think I'm going to demand it after the stress that I went through making this last one be virtual and people on campus as well.
Yeah. I was juggling a lot.
That was a lot. So
I've been where you were, Corey, when we were fully virtual. This guy right here, me and Josh, tag team that. But
sure.
I'm glad you took it over this year, though. That is a handful.
Yeah. So you talked about how you came to the settlement school for the writers' workshop. So what kind of sparked your interest in that? How'd you get started coming to that in the first place?
Well, in the first place, because I really wanted to write. And at the time, I really wanted to write children's books. And so I took Georgella Lyons' class on picture books and loved it. And, I guess you need to think of writing as a long-term project. I have just recently learned that my picture book has been accepted for publication for next year. So those lessons from Georgella all those years ago have resurfaced. And she actually read through my manuscript at the last in-person Appalachian Writers Workshop in 2019. Really liked it and encouraged me and offered some suggestions to make it better. And a couple of months later, it was accepted for publication. So cool. It is, my motto is it's never too late.
Yeah, I guess. See, I try to rush everything because I'm a then and there, but I might have to do the same thing with a book one day. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I'm a writer somewhere deep down, but I don't know.
That's right.
Yeah. I in my head, I'm a writer. I want to be a writer. I've done some writing, but I feel like whenever I don't do it for a long time, I come back to it. I'm like, oh gosh, I should never write anything ever again.
You know what we should do, Corey? Since you mentioned that on our podcast, we should read it sometime. No.
That's good.
For sure, we should read it.
But most writers feel that way when they look back at their work, and it's like, ooh, that's why you revise things. And that's why you have editors.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll edit. I can be harsh enough, I think.
Yeah, you can.
That isn't my character arc.
Yeah, it is.
Are we? Sorry, I lost my place. Like I said, I was exhausted. Did you ask B?
I did. You're C.
Thank you. Keep me on track. So you kind of mentioned Georgella. Is she the writer that inspired you, or is there someone else who helped you find your voice?
Well, I love Georgella's work, and she's a fabulous teacher. Mm-hmm. So yes, she's definitely in the mix of inspiration. Of course, Silas House has been an inspiration not only as a Kentucky fiction writer. For anybody who aspires to write fiction, Silas is masterful. He's also an excellent teacher on how to write. So I've had him here at the workshop. Bobby Ann Mason is an important influence for me because she also grew up in Western Kentucky. And I think she has also set a standard and a recognition that you can write about Western Kentucky, rural Western Kentucky, and people all over the world will want to read it. And because it's she writes human stories.
Mm-hmm.
They happen to be set in Western Kentucky or West Tennessee or wherever. So I think they're wonderful lessons about writing from all those people. Gurney Norman also. Gurney inspired me to sort of venture out and try to write poetry. So remember the year he read Allegiance at the Writers' Workshop? I think that was like 2018 maybe. But
was that the year we had the big tent in the field?
I think that was 17.
Okay.
I think that was. Anyway, Gurney read this poem, because Gurney's a fiction writer, but he writes beautiful poetry. And so he inspired me to try my hand at poetry. And I've had 2 books come out. They were actually my first works to be published. So, again, that's the wonderful thing about the Writers' Workshop here is that you are encouraged, to put yourself out there and try it.
I mean, I was about to say, you put the pen to paper on all those different genres. The children's book, I mean, this is a novel, and then you got the poetry. I mean, we can't nail you down. I mean, what would your genre even be? I mean,
I'm not sure.
I think it's good to be a jack of all trades.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe master of none, but I think it's kind of fun to change and evolve. Yeah.
I'm all about that. I can't.
It's been my motto is jack of all trades, master of none. That's what I do. There's nothing that I'm great at, but I can do a little bit of everything.
That is my same. I'm in the same boat. I just like to do. I like to do a lot of different things. So I mean, I mentioned early in our podcast I have several hobbies, and that is why. Is because I need to constantly be doing something different all the time. So.
You're a lifelong learner.
Am I?
Yeah.
How's the kombucha going?
That's a good question.
Are you making it?
I'm trying my best.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, my pellicles, some of them got mold on them the other day, and I had to...
That's not a good thing.
Yeah, I had to rework that and try to figure that out. But look at me knowing my kombucha slang.
I don't even know what that word was. I've made kombucha before, and I've not heard that word. So you've progressed further than I did.
Yeah, maybe I'm the master of kombucha, but have not made a single batch. But
you know better,
though.
One day. One day.
So I know you grew up in Western Kentucky, and I think from reading your bio, you had never actually seen the town before. I guess that was built then in the 50s, so I guess you'd never actually seen the town before other than in pictures. So what inspired you initially to write Drowned Town?
Well, I have, growing up in Western Kentucky, I was a beneficiary of all these projects, basically, because after Kentucky Lake was built and Kentucky Dam, and Western Kentucky went through rural electrification. It was a part of the New Deal. So Western Kentucky started changing with that project and becoming more developed, sort of coming up out of a more rural and poor area. I mean, it was a farming area, and it suddenly started, B.F. Goodrich and all the uranium enrichment plant that I was telling you about. It became more industrialized. It's still quite rural, but there's a more of an economic base there. I became interested. I think when we bought a house, my husband and I did, in Old Catawba in 2003, our parents were all getting older. They weren't traveling very much. I wanted to spend as much time in Western Kentucky as possible so that my children could know their grandparents more. because grandparents weren't coming to see them anymore. So we spend as much time in the summers and holidays in this old house in Old Catawba, which overlooks Lake Barkley. So as I did research on the town and how it used to look, I became fascinated with that history, because you just take for granted that it's always looked like this. It's always been this big lake. So, and we didn't have family connections there. We didn't have people who lost land to build these giant lakes. So I didn't have any personal connection to it. One December afternoon, I was walking along the shoreline in Old Catawba and saw like shards of asphalt still stuck to the earth. I saw house foundations and even like railroad spikes where the railroad station used to sit in Old Catawba. And it was a really almost haunting image. And also inspiring to me because I wanted to know more about how this town looked and, where were the businesses, because Old Catawba now is basically a 1 to 2 street town. That's the houses that are still there. So it's a half-drowned town, basically. All of the houses face the lake. It almost looks coastal rather than lake because you think of a lake house, you have all the glass or whatever in the back to look out at the water. Well, all of these have front porches from, 1900 facing this lake. So the commercial district of the town, just disappeared under the water. So anyway, that was the inspiration for it. And as I learned more and talked to more people and learned of this sense of loss, that there's so much that you can't see that used to exist here. And it was, it's a unique history.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine living in a place. I mean, I'll use where I'm from, for example. If Leslie County just was put underwater one day, I don't know. I don't even know how you adjust to that. Because Hindman is also in a valley, so I mean, if that entire place is filled in with water, where's the Appalachian Arts Center? Where's the Hindman Settlement School? I mean, these things that
you
were
just
institutions.
wipe out,
yeah,
an entire town. And there's so many man-made lakes in Kentucky. I think it's like 42 man-made lakes. Wow. So there are lots of areas that have had similar stories, of loss and people who can never go home again. They gave up their homes, their generational farms, for the public good. There's definitely a public interest in electrification and flood control. But there's great sacrifice, and I'm very interested in acknowledging that sacrifice. Before this generation that actually gave up their homes is actually gone. Time has passed.
Were they compensated for their land in any way?
They were. I mean, their property was purchased by the government through the power of eminent domain.
Okay.
So, and the government is supposed to compensate on a fair basis, with appraisals. One of the stories in the book is about an appraiser who goes to appraise a piece of property that was going to become part of Land Between the Lakes, which is a national recreation area that runs between Lake Barkley and Kentucky Lake. So this area was 170,000 acres was condemned and purchased by the federal government in the late 1960s. The last people were moved out in 1970. Oh. So this is recent history, That's just a generation or two ago. And I do remember driving through that area as a child and seeing, I think it was the town of Golden Pond, because it was on US 6880. So as we were coming to eastern Kentucky to visit family, we would have traveled 68. So US 68. So I remember seeing this entire town being torn down. And that was for Land Between the Lakes. The lakes were already built at that time, so it was for the recreation area. But I have this very vague childhood memory of seeing this town being destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day, driving through. If you came through Jackson and on your way down, just like
I
that,
did.
right before you get to Hazard, just like where they're building the new widening, expanding that road, just like there's been so much there that's just like wiped out, and I'm like, oh, I really wish I would have taken time to really like remember what this looked like before they destroyed it all. But so now I have
How long has that project been going on? Because it's been a long time.
Yeah, it feels like an eternity. I'd say it's been 3 years or so.
Yeah.
Not really sure when it started, but they're getting there.
But it's
I
a
think.
massive project. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, I always try to. I don't really foresee too much changing in Hyman like that, but I always try to take pictures around here to make sure that I can catalog that and remember.
Now, Corey, we were trying to be optimists, remember?
It's true.
Hyman is going to change, but for the better.
Well, the only change I remember from my life in Hyman is when they put that bridge in and Yoder's went out of town. Now it's up on the bypass, but
So let's look at the positive. They're closer to the highway, and now we have a new bridge. We have new infrastructure.
yeah,
That happened in your childhood.
but think we could walk to Yoder's right now if it was still downtown.
Fair.
So when did they move?
I think that was like I was really young,
Okay.
like early 90s, but
Okay.
I remember it being there. So yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
You mentioned that pretty frequently. That must be a sore spot.
That and the fact that they took Taco Bell out of the Double Quick up there is
There's a Taco Bell here.
yeah, that's what we've lost. We've lost Taco Bell.
You know, maybe there is a lot of loss here that needs to be addressed.
Right. There's loss everywhere.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So this is a long question because
Okay.
Corey loves to give me these. So
I was very thoughtful.
it is a $1 million question for sure. So your book is a fictional account of historical events and real places. So how did that affect your writing process, and what kind of research or thought goes into writing a book like that?
Well, my research was to get the history right so that I didn't make assumptions on what actually happened. And, of course, I wanted to get the right time periods and make sure I had all the historical facts correct.
Mm.
But I wanted to write it as fiction because there are a couple of, at least a couple that I know of, good nonfiction books about the history and the taking of this land and all those changes. So I didn't want to, write another nonfiction book. I wanted to, the goal to me was to try to capture the emotional aspects of it and the human aspects of it, not just to tell the historical facts. So I wanted to create fictional characters and to make this history come to life.
That probably also gave you more room too.
It did.
to
It gave me a lot more freedom to, I created a new town, the town of Sycamore, which gives me some flexibility to just set up plots and scenes that I guess are only in my mind. So I think for people who grew up with this and who know this history, I hope they, appreciate the fact that there's just, it's a retelling of what actually happened, but based on facts.
So while you were doing your research, was there a particular place or particular people that stood out to you to inspire your fictional account, or is it just basically like every place in the
Well, I think the story is kind of universal whenever there's this kind of environmental change. But I focused on the towns of Eddyville and Catawba, which are both in Lyon County in far western Kentucky. Of course, Eddyville, we know, is the home of the Kentucky State Penitentiary also, and it's one of the few remaining structures that's still in old Eddyville. So, it used to be the castle on the Cumberland is what it was called, because it looks like a castle. It's this dark gray stone, limestone. And when the water came up after the dam was built just a few miles away, the water comes up really close to the lake, to the prison now. So prisoners have, I guess, a good view of all those changes.
The immediate image that comes to my mind is Alcatraz, like that whole like building a raft and like going down the lake. Right. That's just me. I'm seeing an escape immediately. Like I don't know.
It'd be a tough escape out, because it's a sheer cliff.
Yeah.
So
I haven't been out that way.
It'd be tough. I'll have to send you a picture of it.
I mean, I guess you could hang glide off the side, right?
Yeah, you could.
I don't know.
Of course, you still have to get over that razor wire and past all the guard shacks and things. But, and the prison has just an incredible view all up and down the lake and also across the lake to Land Between the Lakes. So it's, it's a very interesting landscape.
I wonder how you get a window view in a place like that, like a lake view.
I'm not sure,
I'm sure it's a commodity.
If you could, exactly, for good behavior.
You get the lake view if you're good. Go for it.
Yeah, so while I was reading it, I became interested in like thinking about the people. I guess like the differing opinions, because like in the first chapter, they're very excited about picking out their model of house that they get to build. And then there's this kind of curmudgeon guy that's like holding out and not happy about it. Right. So like just thinking about like, the people that are happy about it and disgruntled. Did you talk to anybody in your research like that, I guess kind of maybe remembers and had those opinions about it?
I did. And I think overall there are more people who, miss the old town. It's this, it's sort of a treasured history in a way, that they miss it. But I do think that there was probably excitement about moving to this new town that developed. It actually was known as New Eddyville for a long time, not officially, but to differentiate the two towns, the two sections, and they're about 2 miles apart. So they're not like just built up the hill to higher ground. It was actually, pretty far away, and you don't see the river, don't see the lake. But I think, there are lots of responses to this kind of change, and so I had to create both that tension between the excitement for the new and the excitement for progress and what it was going to mean to the entire region, but also the people who were giving up their actual and specific homes.
Yeah. So what I think stands out most to me from what I've read so far is the sense of place, and I think that's kind of something as we as Kentuckians maybe value and understand more than other people. Maybe I'm just projecting that on us because I don't really know what people are like elsewhere. But
Kentucky is superior.
Yeah, we're very into where we're from and
we should be.
In the place we're from. So what is the significance?
And I think our literature is that way too.
Yeah,
I think place is very important in our literature.
Yeah, so how would you say that place is important in your book, and why do you think Kentuckians in particular value it so much?
I wonder if Kentuckians value it so much because so many of us and our families have been here for so long, We didn't go further west, or a lot of us didn't, our ancestors. We are, we came, like my family, came to Pike County and sort of landed there and stayed. Mm-hmm. So I think that generational connection to land and to place is really important. It's an important theme, I think, for Kentuckians. A lot of us have been here for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you're already here, why go anywhere else?
Yeah. I've often wondered why, some settlers went on and sought something else, and why some families, just, I guess they found the place they loved and the land worked for them and they were able to survive on the land.
Yeah, I think as soon as I would have hit desert, I would have been like,
I'm going back that way.
There's no trees anywhere. I mean, it's time to
no water.
Go right back.
Yeah.
I
think as soon as I hit just flat land everywhere,
Yeah,
I've been like,
The plains.
maybe I would like it if I was. I've never really experienced it too much, just a little bit. We're going to get to experience it here pretty soon, and I'm probably going to see enough flat land to do me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Where are you going?
Well, we're going on a trip
Ooh,
to
good.
California. We're flying to California
Mm-hmm.
to pick up some stuff that somebody is donating to us, but the stuff can't be
Driven
shipped.
back.
Yeah, we have to drive it back 34 hours.
What a cool trip, though.
Yeah, so
I think for me, if I'd been a settler, the first big river I had to cross, either on horseback or in some kind of, log raft or something, I might have turned back then.
Yeah. I don't know about getting wet. I don't know about that. But I mean, like you come Appalachia, for example. I have my bias for Appalachia.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say that when you come here, you're kind of suffocated by the mountains. I don't consider it suffocation. It's a hug.
It's like a
It's
hug. It's a
cozy.
warm blanket.
It's
Yeah.
cozy.
That's what Appalachia is to me. And I mean, when you look at what we have going on today, I mean, it's compared to anywhere else, Appalachia's the place to be. California's on fire. I mean, the East Coast
that's
is
true.
flooding. I mean,
That's true.
safe here.
Hurricanes further south.
Oh yeah, that whole tornado alley and all
Yeah.
that. Nah, we don't get that here.
Yeah.
No
It's-
tornadoes.
It's feeling pretty cozy here.
Yeah, it's my safe place. it's my.
I think about when my parents moved from the mountains, and they always considered it home forever. I mean, they were going to go up home, when we were going to come visit family. And my parents never returned to the mountains to live. We visited a lot, but, they stayed in Western Kentucky for 60 years after they moved and until the ends of their lives. So I think of what a huge change it was for them to come from the mountains. And Western Kentucky is very flat. I mean, there are some rolling hills, but it's pretty flat. So
Yeah, I was trying to think about that. It was like, whenever I was reading it, I was picturing Carrs Fork Lake, which is in a deep valley, and I'm like, how do you flood flat land like this and just make where does it go? Wouldn't it just spread out really far? Which I guess it kind of does spread out really far.
well, and that's kind of why the lake appears to be so vast,
Yeah.
but can be very shallow in places because those were all river bottoms.
Which there was somebody, a captain experienced that over the summer, didn't they? How
That's right. That was
shallow
right
it could
in-
be.
That was right in front of my sister's house. So she had the catbird seat on watching the whole thing of trying to dredge it out, pull it out. Oh, it was an ordeal.
So I didn't hear about this, but I assume someone ran ashore in a boat.
Yeah, a cruise ship, one of the river cruise ships. I think was it American Jazz?
Yeah, I
was
think
the
so,
name of
yeah.
it. But it was one of, like the Delta Queen used to travel all the rivers in Western Kentucky too, and the Mississippi River. But this one ventured outside the channel, and that's a very large ship, and it hit a sandbar.
Oh.
So it was stuck. I think it went on for a couple of weeks, probably.
Probably. I followed you on Facebook, and that's how I saw it. I kind of looked around on the internet and see what was happening. But
Yeah, so it was, yeah. And I saw that boat the other day when we were visiting my sister again, and it was actually moving. And it's still cruising on Lake Barkley.
And what'd you say the boat's name was?
I think it's American Jazz.
This
It's a new ship.
okay. This program not brought to you by American Jazz.
I'd say that captain had a bad day
Yeah.
with the.
Probably got fired.
Right. I'm just wondering if it's the same captain.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting thing to know. And being on that ship, I'd be a little nervous if it were the same captain.
Yeah. I think he or she will be watching those markers, those navigational markers, better than on that trip.
I imagine. I'm just wondering, as soon as they knew that they ran up on that sandbar, like how they felt in that immediate moment. Like, I'd like to think they or he or she, they were just like, God, so stupid. Like, immediate.
Stuck.
Mm.
Or like the Evergreen ship in the Suez Canal or whatever. It's like, what they try? I don't know what was happening there, but it was like, this thing is like horizontal in this
It like
river
shut
or
down
canal.
the economy.
Yeah. It was a real bad day.
like, you got to drive a straight line. That's it.
They were like trying to turn around or something. I'm like,
No, they were trying to, what's that? I can't remember the name. I'll think about it later.
I don't know anything about boating.
It's a car thing. Is it a 3-point turn?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like they were trying to turn around.
Yeah, like
or something. I'm like, you can't do that.
Nah. They were like, oh, we went in too deep. So I'm just gonna push right into this next question with no segue. So your book is being published through our Fireside Industries imprint with Silas House as your editor. So how has that process been for you, and what does it mean for you to be published by Fireside?
It is a dream come true. You know, I've every aspect of this process has been better than I could imagine it. So to have Silas as my editor, and because this is very much a Kentucky story, and it's also a regional story, a southern story. Any area, you know, there are these Tennessee Valley Authority dams and Army Corps of Engineer dams all over the South. So a lot of communities have felt this kind of loss and know this story, basically. And I think Silas captures life in this part of the world in a very respectful, human kind of way. So to have his guidance on that was really important. And also to have his belief in this book is so encouraging as, you know, a fairly new writer. So, and the connection between Hindman and University Press of Kentucky is such a wonderful partnership to bring voices into the world that have a connection here, who have been perhaps part of the Appalachian Writers Workshop. You know, several of these stories have been workshopped here, so this is the seedbed here at Hindman.
Before you know it, we're going to be like a Penguin publisher over here.
Penguin House.
We're going to run the game, the whole Appalachian game, Hindman Settlement School.
Well, the books that have come out, you know, so far from Fireside, I think are just exceptional books. So I'm really proud to be in the lineup.
We're glad to have you.
Yeah,
for sure.
And also glad to have you as the first of our Fireside our book club subscription
Big
service.
honor.
Yeah, so you can sign up for that at firesideindustries.org. And Jayne just spent probably 45 minutes today signing all the books that we have sold so far. So I'm real thankful for that. It's going to be a good thing.
It's great to walk in and see all those stacks of books. You know, that's the first big signing I've had. So that was fun.
Maybe we can get you back sometime for a signing in person. You know, if we can, I'd love to.
That'd be great. I'd love to.
You know, you could show up to the Writers Workshop, give us that clout. You know that we.
Absolutely.
All right, Jordan.
Yes, Corey, give me the sound.
I gotta find a better level so I don't deafen our guests every time we do that.
We'll figure it out. It's a learning process. But that's the lightning round. So we're gonna start off. Corey made these questions. So
yeah, and they are Halloween and fall themed questions because it's that time of the year.
It's yeah. I love this. I love this time of year. Halloween, then you got Thanksgiving, then you got Christmas. Solid. Best 3 months out of the year.
Also very tiring, but also kind of restful.
You get that Christmas break.
It's a pretty cozy time of year, too.
Got to really make your house look nice during the summer.
I'm kind of antisocial, though, so there's just a lot of social events and just kind of wears me out. But I get off work, so that I get to rest.
No work.
You always had the pandemic as an excuse.
That's
if
true.
You don't want to be social.
That's true. Yeah. Well, there's a part of me that needs to be social, or get really depressed. But then there's also a part of me that just like it kind of makes me tired.
There's no satisfying.
No, there's not.
But we got a doozy right out of the gate. So, would you rather eat circus peanuts or candy corn?
Oh, wow. I guess I would have to go with circus peanuts.
Jayne.
Trust me, that was a very hard call. I'm a chocolate person.
Yeah, I would not touch either one of those. My kids, however, love both of them, and I don't know what happened there.
I am a diehard candy corn fan. I will eat them by the fistfuls, and that is probably not the best for me, especially this time of year. Why circus peanuts? I just need to know.
Because I really don't like candy corn. Sorry.
Jayne,
I know.
you're killing me over here.
I don't know.
I love the texture. I love the taste. I mean, it's just solid candy. And I don't know if we can be friends. I don't know if we can be friends. I think we'll get through.
Let's run the tape back and I'll give you a different answer.
Yeah, that's the power of editing.
So you don't like candy corn. What is your favorite Halloween candy?
Good follow-up.
Reese's Cups. The little miniature Reese's Cups.
For some reason, the pumpkin shaped ones are extra. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the shape.
Everyone says
they're
that.
extra good.
The Easter egg ones are really
Yeah, that's
good
what I'm really
too.
thinking of. The Easter egg ones.
But the pumpkins are good too.
Yeah.
I'll take them in any shape.
Josh has some pumpkins. They're white chocolate, so that's not my favorite.
No.
But they're on his desk right now, and I keep snacking on his bowl of pumpkin.
So
The
festive.
bowl keeps.
Yeah.
You got the next one.
All right. So if you had a chance to, or if you had to choose a Disney character to dress up as for Halloween, which one would you be?
Ooh. Well, personality-wise, I like Cruella de Vil, but I have been Belle from Beauty and the Beast once when my children were little, and we had a huge Halloween party. So I had the whole Belle thing going on.
Who was Beast?
Probably my husband, but
Solid.
Yeah, I think I don't think it's been ordered yet, so that's a problem. I think we're planning on doing Dalmatians this year, like the 101 Dalmatians. I think I don't know who's Cruella. I think my costume was a Dalmatian, so that's.
You should be Cruella.
Or maybe it was wait, no, I'm. What's the guy's name in the Dalmatians movie?
I have no idea.
oh,
I think I'm confusing Lady and the Tramp in that movie right now.
Oh, that's
It's
a
not-
good movie.
It's not Jim Darling.
Yeah, Jim Darling is Lady in the
Yeah. I don't know. I can't remember the guy's name in the other one, but yeah, the new Cruella movie though, it's really
Is
good.
it good? I haven't
Yes, I love it. I've watched it several times in a row.
I'm going to have to give it a look.
Personality wise, I like that Cruella better than the traditional
seen it.
Cruella.
The cartoon one.
Yeah,
I'm
I guess
just-
I don't really understand how the plot line. I don't see how she turns into what she is in the other movies compared to what she was in those movies.
I can't speak on the new Cruella, but the original one, I don't know. She just seemed like a crazy woman. And, I mean, I guess
I
that's
think that's what appeals to me. No, I'm just
same.
kidding.
That's my taste. But we're just
You-
going to...
I think you'll appreciate the first Halloween costume I dressed our son in when he was little bitty. I mean, he was like 6 months old, and he was Elvis's love child. And so he had a little white sleeper, like a one-piece jumpsuit kind of thing. And I put a full-size, adult-size Elvis head on it. Some great pictures in the car seat, you know.
Oh, I'm
Nice.
sure. I was Peter Pan. Had the tights and everything. That is not a proud moment of my life. I was a little boy. I did not know what I was
I
doing.
never dressed up, but I did make a movie one time where I played Legolas in Lord of the Rings,
Ooh.
and
That movie is on
I
YouTube.
do say I was yeah.
That movie is on YouTube.
I was pretty accurate.
What's the name of that movie, Corey? I'm
I
sure the fans would love to see it.
I don't remember.
I watched it. You told
Where
me
can
the
we
name.
find it?
It's on YouTube. That's all I'm
Is
gonna
it
say. Yeah,
Oh, great.
I bet
I think it's still on there anyway.
who made it? It was through somebody, and that's how you'll.
Yes, through the church youth ministry.
Okay, I'm gonna do some soul.
I can't say the acting was great, but I did look pretty on point.
I thought you were about to say you looked pretty, and I was like, the hair
There
did
was
work
that
for you. The hair did work. So, We already mentioned Thanksgiving, so I'm sure this is going to be a hit. But what's your favorite fall meal?
It's hard to beat turkey and dressing, you know. And it always has to be the dressing that you grew up with, I think, you know, or as close as you can get it. But I do love homemade chili. I love chili cooked over like a campfire.
I don't think I've ever had that. I need to try that this fall.
It is really, I love it.
Like in a cast iron crock pot?
Like a Dutch oven.
Yeah.
Do you get kind of that smoky flavor out of
Yeah,
it?
you do.
Yeah. I know what you're going for. I know
Yeah.
what you're going for.
I've been real obsessed with a white chicken chili this fall so far. So good.
That's a good choice.
See, if we're talking Thanksgiving, cranberry sauce. I think it is the most underrated meal at Thanksgiving because, you know, it usually gets passed over, which just means more for me. So, love that.
So do you like the homemade kind, or do you like the kind out of the can?
Like them both. I can sit and eat it out of the can. And I can eat the homemade. I just love it. Love it, love it, love it.
No.
Do you ever put candy corn in the cranberry sauce?
Are you going to now?
No.
Just a thought.
I like both of those things, but I think they should stay separate. That is a marriage that I don't believe should happen.
That's okay.
You know,
Mixing of seasons too. That's
Halloween and Thanksgiving, they're in different months for a reason. I don't know. I feel like I would ruin two of my favorite foods that way. All right, finishes up, Corey.
All right, so Jayne, where can people keep up with you and your work?
Well, you can go to my website, which is all spelled out, Jayne Moore Waldrop, and that's Jayne with a Y, .com. And I'm going to be doing a couple readings, and I'm going to be doing the Kentucky Book Festival in Lexington on November 6th, and reading at Joseph Beth on November 17th. I'm coming to the Red Spotted Newt. I believe the date, if I've got this right, is November 13th, I think. Just going from memory on that. But I'm going to do a reading there.
Oh.
And so we've got some. Then I'm going to Western Kentucky to do some readings too.
Okay.
Awesome. So, Jayne, we thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and for coming down to Hindman to visit with us.
I'm happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
The HindmanCast is brought to you by the faithful and generous supporters of the Hindman Settlement School. For over 100 years, we've been celebrating heritage and changing lives in Central Appalachia. If you're interested in supporting the work of Hindman Settlement School, you can go to our website at www.hindman.org, or you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the handle @HindmanSchool.